Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison today. Judge Kaplan found that while Sam did express some remorse for what happened, he believed that Sam would be likely to commit crimes again, and that the multi-billion-dollar fraud that he had over at FTX is something that could potentially happen in the future. Prosecutors had been looking for 40 to 50 years for Sam Bankman-Fried for his crimes. Judge Kaplan, as he imposed the sentence on Sam, said that he felt like the prosecutor's recommendations was overly harsh. However, he felt that the size of the crime and the number of victims justified a significant sentence against Sam Bankman-Fried. During the trial, prosecutors repeatedly referenced Bernie Madoff, the former Ponzi scheme fraudster from 15 years ago, as a comparison to Sam Bankman-Fried. While his attorneys tried to portray him as an innocent executive where things went wrong, that story was not bought by the judge. The judge did buy the comparison to Bernie Madoff and other Ponzi scheme fraudsters over the years. The federal sentencing guidelines require that he serve at least 80% of his term. So that would be 20 years, which would make Sam about 52 by the time he leaves prison.
This. Okay, so blockchain crypto gang, what's up? So before we get more into the story, let me just say this real quick as a disclaimer. By no means am I justifying or undermining what Sam Bankman-Fried did, but I am going to point out some things that are just straight up truth. I want to be honest about how I feel about this situation and the real truth behind not only why I feel like he got the time that he got and why this was as big as a deal as they made it. Not to say it wasn't a big deal, but also I want to just disclose some things that a lot of people just probably don't know. So first things first, the reason why I believe Sam Bankman, why they took this thing to the extreme they did, a couple reasons. So if you're in the United States of America, you know white collar crimes are very rarely punishable with jail time. Very rarely do you see a white collar criminal punished with jail time in the United States. The only time that typically happens is when the victims were wealthy and or powerful. In this case, we have some of that. We also have the political nature of this particular situation because Sam Bankman did give to politicians on both sides of the aisle, meaning that they co-signed him to some degree and helped him operate. So throwing him under the bus was a must, lest they destroy their own reputations. Plus, seeing that it has to do with the crypto, and the governments have had, the government's had a hard on for crypto now for the last few years because they don't want people to adopt cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, blockchain technologies, DeFi, before they have their own products and services. See, this is why now the FUD has died down about Bitcoin. When this story first broke, they were pretty much shading Bitcoin and crypto in the crypto market. Like he represented the crypto market. Like because of FTX taking a fall, that means there's something innately wrong with crypto. So there was that element as well. So, there's political reasons. There's reasons that, had to do with just having to be the fall guy. And of course, because some of the victims or people that were implemented in this were wealthy and or powerful. So with that out the way, let's get into the story a little bit, and then I'll give you a little bit more of how I feel about the situation. So crypto entrepreneur Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced Thursday to 25 years in prison for a massive fraud on hundreds of thousands of customers that unraveled with the collapse of FTX, once one of the world's most popular platforms for exchanging digital currencies. I actually liked FTX. It was very user-friendly. They gave you 8% for whatever coins you had on the platform. They paid you back a dividend of 8%. And like I said, it was a very easy platform to use. And they even gave you like free cheap coins every time you did a transaction. So they might give you a SHIB, they might give you a Tron, they never gave you a Bitcoin or an Ethereum, but just little small coins that they give you. Anyway, so there's absolutely no doubt that Mr. Bankman Fried, no, nope, went too far. Though he described Bankman Fried as extremely smart, the U.S. District Judge Lewis A. Kaplan delivered a blistering analysis of Bankman Fried and his crimes before announcing a sentencing that was half of what the prosecutors sought and less than a quarter of the 125 years recommended by the court's probation officers. Now let's back that up, because I do believe that 25 years might be a little too much. Actually, it's 100% too much. It's way too much. And here's why. Here's something that, like I said, I'm not caping for this dude. I'm not undermining or belittling what he done, but we have to be real about it. What he actually was charged with doing is no different than every bank in America in regards to how they operate. It's no different than any other crypto exchange. That's a centralized exchange. They all operate the same way. So basically what he did, just to boil it down and make it easy, is okay, people deposit their crypto on his exchange. Much like a bank, he took some of those deposits to invest in other things. This is what banks do, right? Give loans, charge interest for different types of loans, reinvest it in other markets. This is what banks do. This is what every crypto exchange does. And they do this in banks because we have what's called fractional reserve banking. What that means is that a bank doesn't have to and doesn't have all of our money. It's not there. Typically, it's only about 10% there. They don't expect more than 10% of the people to close their accounts or to come and get all their money out. So what they do is they invest the rest or they loan out the rest, mortgages, car loans, business loans, personal loans, et cetera, because they don't expect that everyone's going to want their money at the same time. So what he did is he moved some of the deposit money into another business of his, Alameda, whatever, forgot the name of it, Alameda, something like that. And he, invested in other things. He did other endeavors. He also spent some, for his own personal enjoyment. But the idea was, hey, I'm going to make this money back. And, as long as everybody doesn't want all their money at the same time, we're good. Like I said, this is what every single bank in America does. This is why Silicon Valley Bank ended up collapsing, because too many people wanted their money and they didn't have it. Now, the caveat to this, the interesting thing about this as well, like I said, all exchanges do this, all banks do this, but he got his hand caught in the cookie jar. He got in a situation where, as he had too much depositor money out, Binance CEO CZ Peng basically exposed him on Twitter, which caused a panic. And people tried to take their money off. It wasn't there. You know the rest. Now, when this happened, I did a video. I did a 2-part series. Let me show you this on my YouTube channel, Crypt Talk Podcast, which is now on Odyssey, because, as some of you know, they shut down Crypt Talk Podcast. YouTube did. So I did a 2-part series called Exchange Wars, Crypto Exchange Wars and Battle of the Exchanges, in which I showed you what happened directly after, meaning that as soon as this happened, what we seen was, on Twitter especially, was a bunch of different crypto exchange CEOs and founders pointing the finger at each other and claiming that they all actually have a 1-to-1 deposit ratio, meaning that they have all their deposit money, meaning that if everybody wanted to cash out, they had all the money. They start showing different documents trying to prove that, even though not one of them actually did. So they're calling each other out. They're basically snitching on themselves, and they're blowing up the spot, as I mentioned in the Exchange Wars videos that I did. They basically brought attention to themselves and the fact that, pointing fingers at each other, they just pretty much made the spot hot. They brought a lot of scrutiny on themselves as exchanges when they did that. Another thing that happened around that same time, and I uploaded this video, is Binance CEO got pressed because he had a problem where he didn't have the liquidity for people to cash out with their stable coins. And, he did a series of different interviews, and I analyzed and gave my assessment of what I thought about what was being said in the interviews. And as you know, as of late, he has pled guilty to and has to pay 4.4 billion in fines. He hasn't been sentenced yet. So listen, all these exchanges do the same thing, man. The banks do the same thing. This is a well-known fact. And this, in another way, this is almost to cover that up. It's almost like that they had to sacrifice this dude because he blew up the spot with how everything went down. And there was a lot of chicanery involved in it. Like I said, Binance CEO basically trying to get rid of his competition. He did what he did. And then he liquidated a bunch of the FTX coin, which made that plummet, and people got real nervous and this and that. And then, of course, they also owned a lot of Solana. That's why Solana tanked. But let's get back to the story. There's absolutely no doubt that Mr. Bankman Fried's name right now is pretty much mud around town, Kaplan said of the 32-year-old California man who seemed atop of the cryptocurrency universe before his business collapsed in 2022, November, leaving customers, investors, and lenders short over $11 billion, which the judge ordered him to forfeit. And it's really probably more than that because the value of some of these cryptos have went up. He was convicted in November of fraud and conspiracy, the dramatic fall from a crest of success that included a Super Bowl advertisement. Remember that? They did actually have a commercial. They had people who they have as pitchmen that they got to endorse their brand. Tom Brady, I think, was one of them. A lot of superstar athletes were actually, had commercials promoting FTX. Yeah, there we go. It says that right there. Tom Brady, point guard Stephen Curry, comedian Larry David. Kaplan imposed the sentence in the same Manhattan courtroom where 4 months previous, Bankman Fried testified that he had intended to revolutionize the emerging cryptocurrency market with his innovative and altruistic ideas, not steal. Now, look, yeah, he did some things that he shouldn't have done. Do I think his intentions were to rob people? I really don't. I think what he did was, hey, the market, his brand was popping, FTX was a very rapidly growing platform that people actually liked. And, he took some of the money, and he was a trader at heart. That's how he started the business, right? He was doing different kind of trades and shit, different kind of investments and stuff. And I think he intended to, and I'm just speculating, I think what he intended to do was to, do what banks and exchanges do. Take some of that money, reinvest it, make more money, bring it back. And he didn't expect that a lot of people would want to cash out at the same time. He got his hands caught in the cookie jar. He got caught with his pants down, and he really got set up. He got lined up. CZ lined him up. In an ironic twist, he lined himself up. See? He lined himself up. He sabotaged himself. And then you've seen all these different, and then Kraken, is now also being sued, and all these different CEOs and all these different crypto exchanges started battling each other in public on Twitter, as if the SEC and all the other alphabet boys aren't on social media watching this shit show that they were doing. Excuse the language. I got to just keep it real. And they were. So as they started pointing the fingers at each other, well, they started auditing, they started investigating, started looking at these other cryptocurrency exchanges, and then they lined up a lot of them. I thought that was bad business. I thought that it was a very bad idea, as I articulated in the crypto exchange wars. Once again, they're on honesty. I'm so glad my YouTube channel, even though YouTube took it down, I'm so glad that I had it on Odyssey as well. I broke all this stuff down, right? Look at this. FTX gives fan Bitcoin for football. When he broke the record on one of his touchdown passes, He gave Bitcoin to the person in the stands who caught it, and he also was a FTX dude. So listen, this bull market that we're in, this see, the thing is, the attack on the crypto market was in full effect. This was before the ETFs. See, now that we have these Bitcoin ETFs, they don't have to attack crypto as much because now it has been introduced to the financial world in a what they would call legitimate or traditional way. So now we have Wall Street and we have a bunch of money makers, investment vehicles, financial institutions, etc., that are now offering derivatives of Bitcoin. That means they're going to commercialize their product, meaning they're going to attract the emerging growing audience, but they're going to herd them into their centralized means of investing in the market. And this is what I told you would happen. This is why I've never changed my byline on my Twitter handle. I'm telling you the news about cryptocurrency and blockchain, to paraphrase, that you won't see on the mainstream media, ... yet. I said this in 2019 because I understood that once these financial institutions and these large corporations and nation states started adopting and creating and had their own products and services, blockchain related, that it would come out to the mainstream. Then the FUD would die down because now it would be safe. This is why they're buying up the Bitcoin. This is why all these large billionaires and all these companies and ETF issuers are buying up all of the Bitcoin. They can't stop it, so they just want to buy it and they want to control it. And they're not going to sell it. They're just going to rent it to you via derivatives. You're going to hold it on an exchange where you don't really own it, or you're going to hold an ETF or some type of other derivative where you'll never touch the Bitcoin. Even if you cash out your ETF, they're only going to give you cash. They're going to keep the Bitcoin. This is all being done on purpose. See, now it's more safe for them to advertise. It's not as much as a conflict of interest as it once was, because we got to keep it real. Bitcoin has produced, according to Michael Saylor, I put this on my TikTok, maybe I'll throw it on a short here, but in the last 3.5 years, Bitcoin has increased 432% compared to 7% with gold. 432% compared to a 50% NASDAQ, 56% S&P 500, minus 13% for gold, or not for gold, for silver. So if people were more in tune with what you can do with crypto, not just as an investment, but even as a store of value, because of course, you have staking, which you can pay, you get paid a pretty good percentage to hold your crypto when you're staking. You're getting paid a lot more than the traditional banks, than your saving account's going to give you. So if people started gravitating and pivoting towards that direction, then the failing banks would fail even more. This is why the SEC has been going after Coinbase and every other platform that offers staking. If people knew that they could borrow against their own assets, no intermediary, no authority, no permission needed, no credit check. You could borrow against your own assets, no personal information, no KYC, no verifying of identity. And you could do this on your own, pay it back however, whenever you want, or or loan and get percentages. You can do the same thing that banks do. If people got too hip to that before these financial institutions got a chance to create and offer these type of services, people would see less relevance or utility in traditional banks. Not to mention the fact that traditional banks are closing branches left and right. So there, this is something that's going down. Like I want to make it clear as I wrap this up. When I say study Bitcoin, it's not just because I think you're going to get rich and you're going to make a lot of money. Yeah, if you invest at the right time, you will. I mean, like right now we have a sand. Was that the sand timer? The sand clock. We're on a timer right now that's counting down. Right, we're on the clock right now. We're in the third quarter right now, wrapping up the third quarter. As before we get into that fourth quarter, which is the bull cycle, the real straight up bullish cycle that's going to go parabolic. So as of now, if you've been stacking for the past year, yeah, you're probably going to see some good returns as long as you time your exit strategy properly. And if you know what you're doing to some degree, because some of these coins, depending on when you try to dump them, they're going to be very expensive to do so. Well, the Bitcoins and Ethereums, or the liquidity might dry up. And there's a lot of different factors that you have to factor in. But for the most part, if you time it right, you'll probably do very well with this bull run. But as we get closer and closer and further within the bull run, your leverage will decrease. So the amount you put in won't rise as much. So we're at a very unique time that only happens every 4 years in the crypto market, where we're going to see parabolic action soon. And we've seen glimpses of that already. But that's really only one factor why I say study Bitcoin. So if you study Bitcoin, you understand blockchain, you understand the dynamics of currency, you understand global politics better, you'll understand the fundamentals of blockchain and some of the protocols that you can benefit from using and how to use them. But also, because since we're going that way anyway, and if we're talking about like privacy and the fact that we know we will probably see within our lifetime a cashless society. If you understand the implications of that, it's nothing to be afraid of if you're prepared. But a cashless society means that all all transactions will be trackable. Like, I don't know exactly what they're going to do with their central bank digital currency. I can only speculate. I can only say the capabilities to highly program that currency will exist. So they can track where, when, who. They could even shut it off. They can say, because of your blah, blah, we're not going to let you do any transactions with the central bank digital currency between the hours of, or that exceeds the limit of, they'll be able to do any of that. They'll be able to say, hey, you can't take cash out your bank. You can't spend cash. We've pretty much done away with that. So in order to hold your funds at our bank, which you have no choice but to do, we're going to charge you what's called reverse interest. This is something that's already been proposed. The idea of reverse interest is, instead of them giving you the small percentage that they've been giving you to hold your money, now they're going to charge you. But if you understand how to do a crypto and you're holding it yourself, not ETFs, you'll still be able to transact on a personal peer-to-peer manner with no government interference, and anonymously, autonomously, privately. So it's deeper than just the fact that you can make money. It's also just understanding where we're going and where do you want to fit in with this. I didn't mean to babble and ramble, but let's go ahead. Prosecutors said tens of thousands of people and companies worldwide lost billions. So companies lost billions. That's what I said. When it comes to the United States, if you're not from the United States, the only time white collar criminals typically go to jail, like they mentioned Bernie Madoff, right? Bernie Madoff, somebody else, I think he got life, but only because his victims were all rich and wealthy. See, if you've been watching me from the Carrot Bars and Gold Standard Bank and all that stuff, Gold Standard Partners, then you know that you've probably been frustrated that no one has been apprehended. Part of that reason is because, they're out of jurisdiction, so the United States can't really do anything, and these other countries have done somewhat a lot more than the United States, and they did it a lot earlier. But they just, as far as the United States, they're not as motivated because the people that were ripped off were everyday working people who don't have the wealth to really push the issue or the notoriety for them to really quote unquote care. But when you're dealing with white collar criminals victimizing wealthy people, you're going to get justice a lot sooner. So Kaplan agreed that prosecutors Thursday that Bankman-Fried should not be credited because some investors and customers might recover some money. He noted that customers lost about $8 billion, investors lost $1.7 billion, and lenders were shorted by $1.3 billion. So there you go, right there. That's $3 billion right there that you could already just chalk up to wealthy people. You could chalk that up to institutions and or venture capitalists, people that really matter, right? Then 8 billion investors, some of those were retail investors, some not. So, like I said, this is not in any way to try to cover for him. But it's just to just be honest with you guys, man. Because if people are pointing the finger at FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, understand your banks do the same thing. Every single bank does the same thing. No bank in America, and I've already done the reports, I've read the reports before, has more than 50% of the depositors' money. Like some exclusive banks might have up to 50%, meaning that they can withstand 50% of their customers closing their account without having to go bankrupt, but they would definitely not have any money left. But most banks only keep about 10, 20%. They don't have it. So the same thing that happened at FTX, well, it's already happened. Remember, we've had the 3 largest bank collapse in history happen just last year alone. 3 of the biggest bank collapse in history. The biggest 3 bank collapse in history of the United States happened in 2023, followed by a lot of other banks that didn't collapse closing their branches. So this thing could happen at any bank. Coinbase doesn't have all your money. Binance doesn't have all the money. No, they are taking some of that because they don't expect. Now, I assume in the case of most centralized exchanges that they're going to have more than 10%. They're probably going to have, if they're smart, closer to 50% because of the volatility of the market. But they don't have it all. I guarantee you that. They don't have it all. But he got caught because he actually got lined up by Binance CEO CZ, who now also is facing his own problems because he just had to plead himself to even worse things. But anyway, that's that. Make sure you guys subscribe. It's Blockchain Crypto Gang. Hit me up, cryptotalkpodcast@gmail.com. Follow at CryptoTalkP on Twitter. Blockchain Crypto Gang on Facebook as well. Thanks for watching, y'all. Peace.